forward to seeing this on the big screen. We have a very interesting panel discussion for you today immediately following the film. It's particularly interesting if you are a long-time Tucsonan, and we'll find out why in just a moment. I'd like to introduce someone who's going to introduce our panel before the film, Renée Schafer Horton, who is a former reporter at the Tucson Citizen and is currently the internship coordinator at the U of A School of Journalism. She's going to set up our panel for us. So please welcome Renée Schafer Horton.
Yay.
Hi, Renée. Here you go.
Thank you. I should bow to you. Thanks, Jeff, for that great introduction, and welcome everybody to the latest edition of Journalism on Screen. As Jeff said, this is a program, it's run by School of Journalism professors Nancy Sharkey and Bill Schmidt to use movies about journalism to discuss and explore challenges facing journalists and journalism today. Today's program is special for two reasons. Number one, it's our 21st screening, so props to Nancy and Bill for that, and to the Loft for that. And number two, we're using it to mark the 10th anniversary of the demise of the Tucson Citizen, which is the late, great afternoon newspaper that used to be here in town. The Citizen was founded in 1870 and published 6 days a week for 138 years, making it the longest published newspaper in the state by the time it closed. I don't know if the Star has overtaken that at this time. We put out our last paper on May 16th, 2009. My tiny claim to fame is that I was sitting in the newspaper covering the closure of my own newspaper, which was awkward. It was a year that numerous major newspaper companies filed for bankruptcy protection, and a lot of 2 newspaper towns went to 1 newspaper town, and 14,000 journalists lost their jobs that year. Nearly 70 of those were here in Tucson with the Tucson Citizen. The Citizen and its reporters and editors were an essential part of civic life in this city. We competed with the Arizona Daily Star, and where journalism is concerned, competition is always better than no competition. You get more and better news when you're competing with each other. The Citizen was home to scores of really talented journalists, many of whom are still here in Tucson, some who've gone on to work at other venues in the state and even nationally. And while we're discussing talented journalists, could all the Citizen alums who are here please stand for a minute?
Stand.
Thank you for all you did to keep Tucson informed, and let me remind you that there's a Citizen alumni gathering at the Arizona Inn after this event. In the bar area. Mike told me to remind everybody it's in the bar area. Excellent journalism still happens, much of it published online before it ever reaches print, if it even ever reaches print. And much of it in national venues and through the newer model of nonprofit journalism through things like ProPublica and Center for Investigative Reporting. But local communities, in losing their second newspaper or shrinking their lone newspaper, are missing something that can't be replaced by national news reporting. Our local towns and governments are not covered as closely or as carefully as they once were, and that's a danger to everybody. We're all poorer for it. For those of us who worked there, had the luxury and pleasure of working there, I'm sure for many of you as well, a little piece of Tucson died the day that the Citizen closed. So today we gather to mark the loss of the paper and its contribution to the community. Excuse me using notes. To do that, my colleague Mike Chesnick, who joined me a couple of years ago at the School of Journalism and with whom I worked at the Tucson Citizen, has put together a really great panel of former Citizen reporters and editors who will have a discussion after the movie and then take questions from the audience. We'll be joined by the following: Steve Rivera, who covered UA sports for 23 years at the Citizen, primarily UA basketball, and who now writes for allsportstucson.com, among other venues. Gabriel Fimbres, who worked for the Citizen for 24 years as a writer and editor in various positions, and who now oversees media and investor relations for Roche Molecular Solutions. Corky Simpson, who spent 33 years at the Citizen, beginning on the copy desk and moving to be the really well-known sports columnist. He's retired, but he still freelances occasionally for the Green Valley News. Dylan Smith, who spent 5 years at the Citizen, mostly in the online side, and he founded TucsonSentinel.com in the immediate wake of the Citizen's closure as one of the first in a wave of non-chain online local news sites. Chuck Graham's here, he was the Citizen's music and entertainment reporter for 35 years, and he now freelances for The Star and writes for LetTheShowBegin.com. And finally, Jennifer Boyce, who's going to be our panel's moderator. She worked for the Citizen for 25 years in a variety of positions, and she was at the helm as interim editor on the day that we shut down. She's now a program manager at the not-for-profit Institute on Science for Global Policy. So like you, I look forward to hearing what my former colleagues will have to say after the movie, and I'd like to thank you again for coming to Journalism on Screen, and now let's watch a great show.